Welcome everyone to our final session of the Spring 2024 series of Tuesday Times Roundtable, Reimagining Historic Spaces as Places of Community. TTR is the Office of Global Learning Initiative's flagship discussion series that brings together multiple perspectives on current global issues and trends. You can learn more about TTR, watch past recordings, or come back and reference this one at go.fiu.edu/TTR. If you haven't already, please take a moment to sign in using the QR code or the link in the chat. This sign-in is what we'll use to report attendance, and we'll close at 1 p.m. So whether you're here for Global Learning Medallion points, Honors College engagement points, credit from your professor, whatever brings you to us today, we're glad to have you here. My name is Michelle Zaldivar, your program manager here at the Office of Global Learning Initiatives. A special thank you to our graduate assistants, Natalia and Gitangeli, and our senior program coordinator, Janeri, who is monitoring the chat and answering all of your questions as they come in. Medallion students, please make sure to take a second and take a screenshot of that confirmation page on your sign-in so that you can use that for the verification column of your points log. If you'd like to learn more about the opportunities at the Office of Global Learning Initiatives, check out our programs at goglobal.fiu.edu/students, or come by our advisor drop-in hours. This other QR code that's here is to our Instagram, where we communicate with students and undergrads, promote events, let you know what's going on with our office and around campus so that you can engage in global learning at FIU. TTR always centers on a global issue and trend and is always linked to an article where you can learn more. You can read the article for this week's session at go.fiu.edu/TTR0402. That's today's date, 0402. This is because FIU provides everyone with an @FIU email address, free digital access to the New York Times. So if you haven't already, you can activate your subscription at accessnyt.com. So if you go to that website again to read the archival article from today about Vizcaya Museum, at go.fiu.edu/TTR0402. If you hit a paywall, you just need to activate your subscription at accessnyt.com. Really cool event that we are promoting today is just kind of a side note. There's a very unique student showcase that you won't want to miss that's coming to the Graham Center Piano Lounge next week. So this semester, some students in the Graphic Voices Honors College course taught by Professor Gretchen Schnargle partnered with their Ukrainian peers at the Ravina State University of the Humanities in Ravine, Ukraine, to portray the reality of Ukrainian youth during the Russian invasion of their country. So this exhibit, titled "How Are You?" will host an opening reception on Tuesday, April 9th from 6 to 9 p.m. Or you can swing by that piano lounge and just see the exhibition of their work for a couple weeks after that. So moving on to today's session, leading our discussion today is Maria Trujillo, the Director of Community Partnerships and Programs and Interpretation at Vizcaya Museum and Gardens. Maria is a museum educator who has worked in the field of art and community programming for over 10 years. She earned her bachelor's in art history from Florida International University and her Master of Arts from the University of Florida. As a creative and thoughtful content producer, she uplifts community voices and fosters artist relationships while also building interpretive bridges between complex ideas and audiences of all ages. So please join me in welcoming Maria Trujillo.
Hi, hello. I'm really happy to be here. I am here as monitoring this discussion, by no means alone. I'm joined by my wonderful colleagues, Gabriella Roman, Rebecca Peterson, and Jeff Guin, and we're really excited about this discussion today. So right before we get started, I'm going to share my screen. Michelle? Oh, great. So we had some questions to poll all of you. We really just want to get a better idea of, where you're coming from in terms of Miami and Vizcaya being a place where you may have visited before. It could have been on a field trip. It could have been for your Keenstep pictures. It could have been for a program, or if you've never been. So if you could just answer the poll, that would be really helpful. Also want to get an idea of, what for the second poll that's coming up, an idea of what brought you to this session, if you're interested in cultural institutions, and maybe as a possible career path. So I'll give everyone a second to answer.
Yeah, we're at 66 participation. We're getting close. We're getting close.
Great.
Let's get a couple more of you, some answers in there. I know my first experience with Vizcaya was definitely elementary school field trip.
Elementary school field trip.
Wasn't my last, but that was definitely my first. Okay, we're at 75. You want to go ahead and end the poll there? Yeah, let's go.
Oh wow. Okay, so quite a few people that have either never heard of it or don't know what it is. That's really interesting. Okay. Wonderful. Well, this will be all new, so that's exciting.
You want to go ahead and move on to the second one?
Yep, sounds great.
Great. What might help a little bit too here, Maria, if you want to extend a little bit on what you mean by cultural institution.
Yes, absolutely. So cultural institutions are really just places where you're sharing some sort of historical or art, or there could even be science institutions. So it could be a science museum, for example, the Frost Science. It could be the Frost Art Museum at FIU. It could be an aquarium. It could be a small cultural center. It could be a performing arts center, like the Arts Center downtown. It could be someplace like the Sky Museum and Gardens or the British Art Museum, the FIU Wilsonian, if anyone's ever been there, the Jewish Museum, but they don't always have to be museums. They can also be like smaller cultural centers.
So we're at about
This,
70%. Oh no, go ahead.
okay. Vizcaya in this case it's a museum, but it's a historic site. So, and we'll talk we'll get a little bit deeper into that. But historic houses, Vizcaya, for example. But then there's also the Deering Estate down south. So that's another example.
We're at about 75. I'm gonna go ahead
Great.
and end that there and share the results. Lots of variety here too.
Okay, yeah, wonderful. Great. Well, hopefully I'll be able to answer some questions for everybody, but would be great if you could throw your major in the chat. That'd be really interesting for us to learn more about who's here today. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Let's see. Great. So I just wanted to share a little bit more about myself and how I got into museums. I originally, as mentioned by Michelle, I went to FIU and I studied art history. I was then offered a teaching assistantship at UF to continue my art history education. So I taught some survey intro classes to art history and did some internships there at the University of Florida. And then I was offered an opportunity at the Wilsonian FIU. So really just this full circle FIU experience. And I don't know how many have been to the Wilsonian FIU, but it really is a treasure. I did my undergraduate study thesis there on WPA art projects with Frank Luca, who's a librarian there. So if anybody here has an opportunity to meet Frank Luca or to go to that wonderful library space that they have there on South Beach, I really encourage everyone here to go. After that, I worked at the British Art Museum, where I was the gallery studio programs manager. And then I went to the Denver Art Museum all the way in Colorado. And then I came back for this amazing opportunity here at Vizcaya. So for those of you that don't know what Vizcaya Museum and Gardens is, it was built in 1910 as the private estate on Biscayne Bay by businessman James Deering, but it's been owned by Miami-Dade County and open to the public since the 1950s. It's still on Miami-Dade County land, but now it's operated as a trust. So it's a nonprofit that exists on Miami-Dade County land. Though Vizcaya was inspired by Italian country villas, it is very much Miami space, crafted by Bahamian people and featured with native ecosystems and building materials. It was crafted by many people, but many of them were from Bahamian descent. So I just want to clarify that not all of them that were working on Vizcaya, but their knowledge of how to work with the local environment, the limestone. It was very difficult to build on the site that James Deering wanted this home. For those of you that come, you can see all the different ecosystems that are there. We have mangroves, we have a pine rockland. So really building on this really rocky surface, they really needed this sort of know-how on how to do it. And the Bahamian people really provided that. Vizcaya consists of a main house, gardens and grounds, an historic village, and museum collections, and I'll get in a little bit into each one. So this is a little timeline of Vizcaya. I'm just going to leave it up here on the screen. But basically, after Deering passed, his nieces inherited the property, and his nieces were the daughters of Charles Deering, who had a property at the Deering estate down south. And so it was pretty costly to keep this this house. I mean, you can imagine it was just very expensive. The hurricanes, it was all very much open to the elements. In their interior space, there's a courtyard that really is the center of the museum and the house, and that was all open. So just thinking about, humidity and whatnot, so really keeping this really special place was important. And so they wanted to turn this into the museum, but it was difficult for them to do on their own. So they sold this property to the Catholic Church and also to the county to turn it into this museum in 1953. This skylight built here in 1986 is a really important element, as I mentioned before, because before it was really open to the elements, and since then it's been done a second time. And here on the side is an image of James Deering. He was an agricultural industrialist, and he and his father and his brother were all part of the International Harvester Company, which was the fourth largest company in the US at the time. Vizcaya is known for its historic objects. Here we have an image of one of our enclosed loggias, but really, when he was creating his house, he employed the help of an artistic director named Paul Chalfin, and he really had the creative vision for this museum, this house. What they did was they purchased objects from all over Europe with dealers, and they had just a vision of creating this Italian-esque, very much based in sort of Venice style home that had these expansive views of the local landscape, of the water, which you'll get to see a little bit in a moment. So in order to retrofit all of these beautiful objects that they purchased, they often employed artists. And they could have been local, but there were also quite a few from New York, from the Northeast. He was originally from Chicago, so he had a strong connection to the North as well. And this is really his winter estate. We still do contemporary art commissions. We have two branches. We have an annual commissioned artwork where we work with a local artist to create an artwork that we give them the funds to create. And this is an example here on the bottom is a sculpture that we had installed in our fountains in our gardens. And this was done by Diego and Javier Suarez, which is a duo from Puerto Rico. And they created this environmental sculpture that really is talking about mangroves and about coral reef. So this is just one example. We also have a Cap Lab program where we invite a university to collaborate with us, and they bring their art students and they create a commissioned artwork. So they respond to the space, sometimes with a theme. This year we worked with New World School of Art, and they were responding to the theme of the kitchen as the heart of the home, which is this year's current theme for the Contemporary Arts Program Commission. So we have this really gorgeous main house filled with objects that range thousands of years. We have Roman fountains, we have beautiful Baroque paintings, but we also have a Vizcaya village, which was really the foundation of supporting the house. So over 100 years ago, Vizcaya had a farm on the other side of on the side of South Miami Avenue, which really separates the historic house to the historic village. So this had a lot of staff housing. It had a chicken house. It had a dairy. And these are really just important early buildings for Miami's history. Today, you can come visit us on Sunday and check out these buildings. We offer a tour. But we also have a farmer's market, which is a really wonderful free way to come to Vizcaya and really engage with programming. And I'll get a little bit more into what we do there. We're also going through a multi-layered process of restoration for said historic buildings. So on the left, there's an image of the superintendent's house. So this is where really the person who managed James Deering's estate would have lived with his family. This is during its construction period. And on the right, we have an image of what it will look like soon and when we reopen that building in June. And there will be a cafe there, as well as a space for people to sit and interact. In the front here, you can also see sort of a kitchen garden, which will have basil and tomatoes. And it will also be activated by programming as well. So we have urban farming programs that we do at the Village Farmers Market. We have a Thoughtful Thursday series, which is really supposed to connect plants, being outdoors, art therapy to foster mental wellness. So this really comes in a series. I encourage everyone to keep looking at the calendar if they're interested in something like this. At the bottom, you can see here, this is like an outdoor cooking class that we had with participants as part of this series. We also have a weekly yoga at our farmers market. This is done in a partnership with Hanu Yoga Studio. We offer Tai Chi, yoga, and other types of classes at our farmers market. Through our farmers market, we're really hoping to support local food production and also people that are creating things out of their home or creating things as their local business. So we welcome about 30 vendors, many of which are farmers or bakers or food producers in general. So we have some restaurants that come and artisans that are making things like soaps and candles and whatnot. So really encourage everyone here to come and check us out every Sunday. We also have the Saturday Sprouts activity workshop series where we teach more about farming in an urban environment, which is more directly related to the title of this slide. But we teach people how to compost, how to design your garden given your limitations. Are you in an apartment building? Are you in a home with lots of land? Are you in a homestead? And how to grow their own produce in Miami's climate. We also have school tours focusing on Vizcaya's connection to agriculture and to soil to seed to plant process. And now I'm going to actually turn it over to our school programs manager to talk a little bit more about school programs. But did you want to actually, if there's any question from the chat, Michelle, that you wanted to pose to the group before?
And so none yet, but that's a
Okay.
really good just transition reminder. So we're going to hear from a couple of different people today. As you have questions, guys, feel free to throw them in the chat. We'll pull them from the chat and then ask them directly to the panelists.
Great.
So, encouraged.
Okay, great. So I'm going to turn it over to Gabby.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Gabby. I'm the school programs manager at Vizcaya. Pretty much what that is any type of programming related to K through 12 students. I work with a team to kind of facilitate those experiences. So before I get into it, a little bit about myself. I have been at Vizcaya for about 2 years. Before that, I went to Florida State for my bachelor's in art history. Later on, got my master's in museum studies. I was at a museum before this, the Children's Art Museum in Broward as the school and public programs coordinator is a long title. And now I'm at Vizcaya doing school programs. Maria, if you don't mind switching to the next slide. Okay, cool. So kind of the backbone of school programs at Vizcaya are school tours. We offer tours for typically 2nd through 12th grade students, although we've had younger before. And, there's kind of many different approaches to school tours. I would say when I came in, school tours were an inquiry-based experience where tour guides encourage students to ask questions, have open conversation, and that still really is kind of the backbone of school tours. We want to make sure that students feel welcome in the space, that they feel like they can ask questions, they can talk to each other, they can talk to the tour guide. But since then, we've added on a couple of hands-on activities. We've learned, especially post kind of pandemic or like post virtual school, that activity-based experiences were really helpful and beneficial for students engaging in a historical site. So we have a couple different thematic tours. Some are focused on history, the environment, art, geography, design and engineering, and each tour has an activity for students to participate in. So while acknowledging the fact that yes, we do ask questions and students are engaged that way, it may not be the most accessible way of engaging students. Students may not feel comfortable in the museum space, may not feel comfortable speaking out loud. So activities really help making sure that the students feel like they're a part of the experience. So the activities they might do might be like watercolor painting as they learn about some of our Vizcaya artists, or exploring Vizcaya's habitats by making nature journals and documenting their observations, playing a game about Vizcaya's historical staff. So it's really been a huge game changer in our experiences. We've noticed that students feel more engaged, they feel like they belong, and they feel welcome in the space. But over Vizcaya's time with school programs, we've also developed a lot of really important relationships with schools. Some of them are listed here, but like Southside Prep, which is located in Brickell. We have George Washington Carver, which is like Coral Gables, Grove area, as well as a partnership with Miami-Dade schools. So again, really making sure that teachers and students feel engaged, welcome, and are really a part of the Vizcaya experience as they visit. Thank you. And one of the big programs we do is Creative Vizcaya. Creative Vizcaya is for high school students, but essentially they collaborate with artists in workshops, exploration, all of that. So typically we have different artists each year. The artists are invited to the estate to come up with a workshop inspired by Vizcaya's architecture, collection, and design. And then they create a lesson that the students would engage in during their visit. And again, Vizcaya is a pretty challenging space to welcome students in. We don't have a classroom space. We don't have like really formal seating. So Creative Vizcaya kind of takes on a creative approach to that and uses the estate as the classroom. So students are sitting in our gardens, they're sitting on our terraces, they're making art, they're collaborating with working artists. Last year we worked with FIU MFA students, so it was really cool for them to connect with like as they're going into college, you know, students who are kind of already done it, artists that have already done it, and to hear from them. But the program provides free transportation, free admission, free lunch, kind of acknowledging the barriers to accessing a place like Vizcaya, where like it's kind of tough to get on a bus and come and bring 70 students. So it's been a really cool program. Kind of notable responses from students is that they felt relaxed and they felt just kind of being at Vizcaya, being away from the classroom was really invigorating for them. They learned about new art techniques, learned about artists that are currently working, not kind of just artists in textbooks. So again, like it's just a really cool program to think of this guy as a community space rather than just kind of a place where you come, look at objects, leave. And then our Vizcaya Teen Council. So we have a Teen Environmental Council that was formed last year. It's 13 high school students. And essentially, they're thinking about issues relating to the environment, preservation, and conservation. So they get to focus on issues that they care about, issues that are important to them, and then they think about solutions or ways to engage the public in these topics. So they might be engaging with different professionals, kind of experts in the field. A couple months ago, we had an artist come out and a couple professors from and talk to them about coral reefs. That was like really cool and resonating for them. They develop programming. So a bunch of them have developed like art workshops, food collections, games, all of that, thinking about creative ways they can engage other teens or children or adults in these issues. And then they're just collaborating with probably teens or other high school students that they wouldn't have engaged with. So these teens come from different high schools, they're different grade levels. So kind of coming out of their bubble and engaging with those who maybe they would have never met. So, you know, I think we felt like we were really engaging elementary school students or urban farming program, engaging middle for other programs. And this is just a really teen focused experience for us to better engage this audience. And I think that's my last slide. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
And
So,
they're paid, right,
good
Gabby?
question came in for Gabriella. If we can address that one before we transition to Rebecca. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Cool. Yeah. So, question for you, Gabriella. Who initiates these kinds of educational partnerships, right? Like, how does an organization go from doing like a one-off field trip with a group of students to having like ongoing programming? What does that? Who initiates that? What does that look like? And
Yeah.
how is that to Vizcaya?
So the group that facilitates our school programming, they're a team of learning program facilitators, which, you know, museum educators, kind of an easier word to digest. It's essentially the same thing, but we work with a team of museum educators that are conducting these experiences. And really, they're the face of not only the museum, but school programs. And a lot of these tours and these schools that come back again year after year are because of the amazing job these facilitators do at engaging them. When it comes to ongoing kind of repeat visitorship, we work with select schools, and those are typically local schools. Southside, for example, is a museum magnet school, so they have the museum experience really built into their curriculum. So it's a little bit of outreach, kind of recognizing the needs and supporting those schools in that. But when it comes to facilitating, it's our team of facilitators that kind of do it all, and they're amazing.
Yeah. I'll also just say too that these are people that are usually in this role are either sometimes they're students that are still in school at FIU, for example. They can also be facilitators that are recent graduates that are interested in education or interested in working in cultural institutions, or even people that are interested in working with the kind of more horticulture side of it, let's say, the sort of outdoor. We have a couple of people that are interested in working for, parks and recreation. So this is sort of a way for them to have this part-time experience, connecting with students, learning more about Miami history and Vizcaya's role in it, as well as being in a learning environment.
Yeah, to add on, I also want to say that this is kind of like a way that a lot of professionals in the museum field kind of get their foot in the door. I started off as a museum educator at a different museum. A lot of Vizcaya staff have started off as museum educators at Vizcaya. So it's a really great entry level role to kind of, if you are interested in cultural institutions or museums, it's a great way to kind of get a lay of the land and know learn about different careers in that.
Wonderful. I think Rebecca's going to have a lot to add to this conversation too, Rebecca.
I was one of those museum educators at Vizcaya. I was one of the first learning program facilitators that Gabby talked about. And at that time, I was the first cohort, let's say, and it was an internship, and it was designed to be a semester long. And we were a cohort of 3, and we just kind of never left. So the internship rolled into permanent positions at the museum. People who were invested just stuck around, and it made sense that we were getting, as Gabby is talking about, on the job training. And for what it's worth, I graduated from FIU as well. I learned about Vizcaya through the professor who was doing the study abroad program I had taken in the Czech Republic. She said, you should check out Vizcaya. They've got an internship there. And I said, what is Vizcaya? And I am a native. I was born here. I saw some of that happening in the chat. So that's a thing. And I've been at Vizcaya now for 14 almost years. So it's been a minute. People tend to stick around, and we evolve. And one of the great things about Vizcaya is that as its people are evolving, the institution and how it serves as a community hub is also evolving. So Maria, if you'll drop to the next slide, one of those program evolutions is Studio Vizcaya. That's where I'm going to focus my time today. It's summer art sessions. Maria, if you'll do the next slide. And these are the pillars that it's human-powered, community-built, and it's made through blind collaboration. So what we do is we commission an artist to envision some kind of art work. And then we host a series of workshops that the community can come in and make the art alongside the artist and each other. There's no experience needed. We provide everything that any person needs: tools, training, whatever. And this third bullet, blind collaboration, the idea is that you might come to one workshop and then that's your contribution. And the next person will come to the next workshop and they'll pick up where you left off. So you are collectively creating an artwork, though you may not be intentionally collaborating with one another. Maria, if you'll go to the next slide. We started this in 2016, and these first pictures that you see here, these are all giant lanterns that got made over the course of a week of workshops. So we did like this blitz with artists. over the course of that week, 300 people came together to build these giant workshops. And then the culminating event every year displays what we've made. And it started with Whirl, the top left photo in 2016. We thought, we'll do 300 people to see if we can get 300 people to come and do a night with us and see these giant lanterns. And then Bloom beneath it in 2017, we thought, well, we sold out really quickly, so maybe we'll do 700 people. And that sold out in like 2 hours. So Float in 2018, Weave in 2019, we're seeing 1,000 people every year because that's the estate's cap. So 300 people come together to build it, and then 1,000 people come to see it. Maria, will you do the next slide? My goal here is to talk less and have participants talk more. So Maria, I think you need to share sound as well, but here's some feedback. No.
Yeah, Maria, it's okay. So you're just gonna reshare the share screen, and you're gonna make sure that at the very bottom, there's a little checkbox that says share audio. If you don't spot it, I can do it. Let me know.
I chuckle about this every time there's technical difficulties because we've all lived through the pandemic at this point, and we should be kind of Zoom ninjas, but somehow
It never happens.
there's
It
just
wouldn't be
always
Zoom if
something.
there wasn't something that just disintegrated in the middle.
Me too, every time. And
Maria,
I'm talking about myself. I'm not talking about Maria. Let's be very clear there.
Maria, do you want me to go ahead and do it for you?
I
Oh.
think
Go ahead and click play, see if it worked.
Okay.
Wow, the
Now?
night is
yes.
magic because really
What?
it's like you are in another part of the time in a world that does not exist.
This is my second year attending. My daughters participated in the art making workshops.
We always work in the workshop every year.
Every year.
Every
Yeah.
year. And we are here and say, so we always will be here.
It's exciting.
It's
It gets
exciting.
better every year.
Thanks, Maria. Next slide. So we were finding this regularly, that we were having repeat visitors and people were really deeply invested in the work that they had made at the workshops. And they were kind of pointing to their friends and they were pointing to each other like, I made that, and let me tell you what this horse is, or let me tell you what this milk bottle is. And they just became, as I say, deeply invested. And the project and Vizcaya and their time together began to mean something in the best possible unintended outcome way ever. But then COVID happened. And so we took 2020 off. And what all of us, not just at Vizcaya, what the world was learning was that we needed time to be together, that humans are social creatures. And how do we, in a world where we have to isolate for safety, how do we still find time to be together? How do we find human connection? So we commissioned an artist to think very differently about the workshops. How could we do them with social distancing, if you all remember that term? And then how can we do it in a way that people can still be on site and spread out? So Spectral Vizcaya took place in 2021. It was an estate-wide endeavor. Sebastian Duncan Portuendo figured out how to use 10 acres of formal gardens. We saw 350 people, again, for social distancing. But the cohort that had been with us since 2016 and 2017, they were glad to be back together again. They were glad to be at Vizcaya. They were glad to be outside. They were glad to be thinking about art making and things that were beautiful instead of all of the tragic that was happening around COVID. And that enforced and influenced our goal for 2022's In Unison project, which was really about what does it mean to be welcome? So we shifted gears a little bit. We switched to these ideas of what does it mean to be welcome? How do we dress that tells people something about ourselves? What are the words that we say that tell something about ourselves? And song and just the choices that we make signal identity. And all of this was about just saying out loud, here are some of the ways that we identify ourselves and how do we make room to be together? We don't have to be the same to be together. And this idea that we can be different and have no idea what's going on, but still have a shared experience. And so, Maria, if you'll do the next slide. The kitchen is the heart of the home was the I don't even know what year we're in, 2023 project.
2023, yeah.
What is time? The 2023 project. And again, I'm going to let the artists and the participants talk about it for themselves.
She's a bit shy. Her last name is Kazes. I think if people took the word kitchen very seriously. Our second workshop, I said, well, how about if we have a potluck in the next time and where everybody brings some baking goods and it can be store-bought if you don't bake. It went a little further than that because we're doing potlucks every weekend and everybody's baking, bringing wonderful, really wonderful things, and we're trading recipes, and that's how this community is really gathering together. It's just through the art and food.
Just a bunch of strangers who like to make things, like eating and making things. It's pretty awesome.
A través de la comida uno se conoce y hay comunicación. Aquí traigo mi comida y conóceme de dónde yo vengo.
And we all learned together, and we had two great teachers, a mother and daughter team that are amazing. I feel really excited about the outcome of our first movie. I think we're about to say, you know, put it in the can because we're just about done.
We had everything planned, but we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know what level of experience everybody had. We didn't know what level of commitment people had. And then on the third week, we realized that people were very committed and they were coming every weekend. And we were already on a flow. We were acting like a team. We were acting like everybody was working together and everybody was in sync and they knew what to do.
The big challenge was really the very little time. What we've done here, it's really something that people take a year to produce in regular films, especially stop motion. It's hard label just right there to create every single thing. The set is done beautifully, and we're just like really impressed with everything that we've done so far.
I'm very excited about it. Seeing how everything plays out, it's a very interesting process making it. So I want to thank everyone for being very nice and helping us out with everything.
I enjoyed this place so much. The people that I work with, they're so special. I've learned so much from them, sharing our experiences, talking about our lives, that I'm gonna miss that.
One of the things that I learned is that art does not only need to be abstract, conceptual, and expressive, but that it also needs to be very structured, precise, and functional. You have to measure and you have to make things fit and make things almost in like a mechanical, engineered way. That was new to me. It was a new aspect of art that I experienced for the first time, and I have a newfound appreciation for it.
There was a lot of flexibility for creation and getting back to kind of like that childlike adventure when you're just creating and having fun.
I think people have surprised themselves with what they're actually like innately good at.
I made purple macaroons.
The one thing I learned, which is something I haven't done in a long time, is just to try new things.
Teamwork makes the dream work. I know it sounds very cheesy, but I would have never been able to build this in the short amount of time that we did if I was working alone. Or, you know, there were inputs and ideas put in place of things that I could have never imagined by myself.
I would love for the audience to feel the sense of joy that we have felt throughout building this workshop.
Thanks, Maria. Could you do the next slide?
Just
Oh, hi,
kidding.
Gabby, in the video. So that was 2023. It's a stop motion animation. And this year, again, what we learned from the kitchen, which was last year's 2023 installation, is that this idea of people kind of being able to share their own stories, that's what helps them feel connected to others in the community. And all of this happening at Vizcaya forges a bond with themselves and each other and themselves and Vizcaya. And it really does just kind of help us breathe this community hub identity that we've got. So 2024 is called Stitch. It's all about storytelling through textiles. So there's a patchwork, there's arpilleras, and there's weaving, and all of it will take place, the culminating event, on July 13th. There's a QR code in the top right corner that you all can scan for more information. And then the last slide is just my own contact information. If anybody wants to kind of chat further, I'm happy to share information. These are more photographs from Float because they're beautiful, and thank you.
So we have one question in the chat that I think really applies to all of them. So if Rebecca, if you want to take the lead on how it applies to specifically this big community-wide event, which I think is fantastic. And then Maria, Gabriella, Jeffrey, if anybody has anything else to add. What do you think having this kind of program, outside of the importance of the program itself, how do you think it changes that it's happening in the historic space of Vizcaya? So does it change anything about the program, and does it change anything about the way the community sees Vizcaya that these things are happening here?
I would say both. It changes how the program takes place because we have parameters in which we need to work, right? It's a weird dynamic that, well, I guess it's not weird, but it's a dynamic that half of our mission, let's say, is about engagement, and half of our mission is about stewardship and preservation. So there's this kind of beautiful tension that happens. And I don't know if you all are familiar with necessity is the mother of invention, but it certainly informs how we operate and how we think about things. Having them at Vizcaya for the community helps us remind people that it's not a dead institution, it's not a dead estate, that we are still relevant, we're still thriving, we're still innovating, we're still here, right? And we're a place as a community hub where others in the community can come together and have shared experiences and be in the same place. It was built in 1916, but that's not where it started, or how about that's not where it stopped? Rather, I can English.
Yeah, I'll back off of what Rebecca said. I think also, just to use the latest example that we showed in the video, the PPA project,
or
these community
Studio
workshops,
Vizcaya.
Studio Vizcaya, sorry, Studio Vizcaya, we changed the name.
We just rebranded, yeah.
Project, I think this one particular is focused on the kitchen. And so it's the replica of the kitchen was shown in the video. We didn't really explain that, but what's really important in that is that it's really was just the base of it. Using this historic kitchen space to think about how the kitchen relates to all of us, our own lives, and then taking those stories and creating something new, injecting our own experience, sharing our experiences with others to create something new together. This guy is also, it's on Biscayne Bay. We should have probably mentioned, or should have shown it on the map as well, is that it's kind of right before you go on to Key Biscayne, right before Brickell. And so its location on the bay, considering now the way that Miami real estate is and sort of less access to these sort of Biscayne Bay fronts. This is a really interesting community space, a public space that people can actually see the Biscayne Bay without owning a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar home. And so this is a way for you to sort of come and engage with the museum, with the natural environment that's there. And we also have artists that engage with that as well. These are really expansive gardens. And so, you know, to Rebecca showing those pictures, this is really a way for people to walk around and engage with the local environment as well.
Wonderful. And Jeffrey, as you take off, feel free to add your own bit to the answer to that question.
All right. Yeah, I'll definitely be going into that. So my name is Jeff. I'm the Director of Technology and Digital Initiatives here at Vizcaya. And I've been working in cultural institutions for 25 years at this point. I was just realizing that, I started out with the National Park Service. I was there 10 years and created my first podcast there in 2006 on historic preservation. So I've created podcasts that are probably about the same age as most of the people on this call. I'm old, but I've learned a lot, seen the world transform during that time. Since working at the Park Service at a Preservation Technology Research Center, I've gone on to work at art and science museums since then before landing at Vizcaya, which I think is a good balance of site-based historic preservation and also community engagement. So it's kind of where I found myself in terms of my mix of technology skills, but also interest in storytelling. So my undergraduate degree is in journalism, and my master's degree is in oral history. So definitely I appreciate a good story, and that's kind of where the genesis of the project I'm going to tell you about started. And go to the next slide, Maria. So the project's called Beyond Vizcaya, and for everybody who answered that poll truthfully about not having heard of Vizcaya, not having been to Vizcaya, but having heard of it, this project is for you. I mean, you don't have to be at Vizcaya to engage with Beyond Vizcaya. Hence the title. We're trying to get outside of ourselves, outside the Vizcaya walls, to make ourselves more accessible, to put the community first. Communities that we serve that may not see themselves at Vizcaya. They don't seem like it doesn't seem like the place that they would hang out. But we want to explore the stories of our community, folks that are not comfortable necessarily coming to it. Part of what we did with Beyond Vizcaya is the genesis of it is that it was founded during the pandemic, and at a time when we were closed for a couple months. And the Knight Foundation asked area communities, cultural institutions, here, what can you do creatively to stay connected with your audience? And they gave us some grant money to do it. And Beyond Vizcaya was our answer to that question. So part of what we wanted to do, in addition to getting beyond Vizcaya's walls, was to build our internal capacity for storytelling. So develop the skills, develop the technology, the tools to actually create stories, both at Vizcaya, but outside of it as well. We definitely wanted to reach out to the new communities, which we say we value. They're primary audiences for us, but lots of museums just expect everyone to come to them, that they're kind of the center of the universe and will tell you what you need to know once you get here. This turns that up on its ear. We're going into the community, asking what's important to you, and then maybe trying to find a little bit of our story in that. So, it's a different approach to interpretation, but not even interpretation, just being interested in your community and part of the community. Go to the next slide. So one of the things we did was look again at our web presence and what do we need to do to improve it. We had a standard blog and stories that were integrated into the website, but we realized that really most people are on the web these days. They're used to social media. So we reorganized the content into something that's very scrollable. It's thematically based. It's something that's easily consumable. And we were experimenting with different types of content that we would develop. We do long form live streams that are more topic based, and we generally have an expert that we interview as part of that. We do short form produced pieces, video pieces. We do audio as well, podcasts. And we also do long form journalism, text-based stories that kind of go deep into a topic. So it's true multimedia. It allows us to experiment and try different things and see what appeals to folks. Next slide. One of the things that we really want to do, as we said, we want folks, they don't have to be tied to Vizcaya necessarily, but just realizing that heritage is a part of all of our existence and ties to it are very, very important. So One of the interesting little nuggets that we were able to dig out is we had I think Vizcaya's longest employee, Eustace Edgecombe. He started as a water boy during the construction of Vizcaya in 1916 and stayed there for more than 50 years. He was very prominent in our history. We actually were able to look up his grandson, William, and William had not ever been to Vizcaya, and he really didn't know that much about his grandfather either. So what we did is we invited him into the museum, kind of gave him a tour, let him discover not only the museum, but also his grandfather's too, his stories. We have a file in our archives of stuff related to Eustace Edgecombe. So we did a video of that. The link is there. I don't know if this slide deck is going to be shared, but we've got lots of content that we're sharing through here that you can click through to. It's a very touching story. It's very powerful. So looking at the live streams, we also want to showcase like different eras and different crafts. So one of the things that we did, Vizcaya has a blacksmith shop here. Historically, it was a blacksmith shop. Now it's used as a conservation studio. We wanted to explore, what was blacksmithing, traditionally, and how was it done. So we partnered with the Guild, Urban Crafts and Folk Art School. They actually brought a forge out to Vizcaya in front of the blacksmith shop, and we live streamed them actually creating replicas of ironwork at Vizcaya. So it was like exploring, how do you do this stuff? The fact that it is even accessible to learn these skills today was very important. But then we look historically about the importance of it. How did it shape Vizcaya and what you see today? We also try to tie these storytelling initiatives to public events. So last year we were focused on climate and environment. And so we had an event called Climate Against Humanity, which we brought people in to share their stories about climate and environment in South Florida. And, we had kind of small, intimate storytelling circles. People told their stories. We actually got them to work with a coach, a storytelling coach, to help develop their stories. And so they shared those, we captured them, and we put them on the website. So, and then we followed up with a live stream after that, just discussing how the event came out. So we try to innovate a little bit with each season of content. In this past season, we delved into like native language storytelling. So not just hearing us speaking in English, we want to explore other voices and hear them in those people's voices. So we partnered with Saint La Haitian Neighborhood Center to have a discussion on climate with members of the Haitian community in Creole. And we put those on our website as well, and we subtitled them. But one of the things we realize is that the words are not all the same. Words that we use in English for climate, to speak about it, are not necessarily even the same, or maybe not even exist in Creole. So we're looking to invest in the communities in this way, letting them speak in their own language to tell their stories. One of the things we do to make sure that we're on point and relevant is that we test all of our content. So when we create content, when we're in the process of thinking about creating content, we go out to our audiences and we do some testing with both the content topics, but also looking at the user experience and consuming that as well. And that kind of helps us chart our course for where we need to go with content down the road. We have like a basic design for what we want to do during a season of content, but we definitely allow enough flexibility to account for the feedback. So with FIU played a big part in this last season. We had a Humanities Edge intern, Yadia Asbea, who was phenomenal, and she jumped in with both feet into the internship with Beyond Vizcaya. She did interviews with some of the guests. She did the content testing, as I was talking about. But going back to the ironwork, she actually researched and created a long form journalistic type of explanation of West African symbolism in ironwork across the East Coast, but she also focused on what was here at Vizcaya. So, that's been a valuable partnership for us, and we're actually going into another round of finding a Humanities Edge intern. So that will certainly continue. It definitely enriches the project. We try to get folks that are expert in the community for our live streams. You know, we definitely want the stories of real people out there. We value everyone's stories, but we try to get some folks that are also knowledgeable about the history, that maybe have lived through a lot of the history in South Florida and Miami. And so, you know, folks that we've talked to, LaRue was a police officer. He was in Overtown, and, you know, he recounted his experience of witnessing the McDuffie riots in the 1980s. We also talked to Dr. Dorothy Jenkins Fields, who founded the Black Archives, and, you know, just a wealth of knowledge and a valuable partner on the project. And finally, one of our very first conversations was Chevron Jones, who he has Bahamian heritage. We were talking about cultural identity at that point in migration. So he was talking about his family stories. But one thing that's notable about him is, you know, he's Florida's first openly LGBTQ identifying state senator. And that kind of got us thinking about, you know, what are relevant subsequent seasons of content. We want the content that we have to be relevant even as it goes through different themes. We don't want to just drop a story. Okay, we've done that theme. You know, this is the facet of this person's story that we're willing to tell. We don't want that to be, people are multidimensional. We want to explore their stories. And so we keep some of those interviews over the course of our seasons. So in a way, Chevron Jones kind of inspired our next season of content that we're currently working on, which is LGBTQ in Miami in South Florida. So we're partnering with FIU professor Julio Capo Jr., who wrote the book Welcome to Fairyland, Queer Miami History Before 1940. He's going to be co-hosting some of our live streams coming up, starting on April 23rd. We're going to be exploring historically, you know, how has the LGBTQ community developed in Miami? You know, what are the ups and downs? And certainly there have been plenty of both. But Vizcaya has a little bit of skin in the game with this story too, and that our artistic director, Paul Chalfin, was openly gay in 1916 when he was designing Vizcaya and partnered. He lived on a houseboat out here on the bay as Vizcaya was being constructed. So we have plenty of historical memory for Vizcaya's story, but we're also partnering with other folks in the community, folks like SAGE, which is a gay elders group, PFLAG, Safe School South Florida. And so one of the things we want to do is create an intergenerational storytelling event where people, you know, throughout these generations can kind of convey what their stories are, share them, learn to value one another, and then hopefully we'll share some of those stories on the website as well. We're also, for the first time, experimenting, innovating with doing long form oral history. So people who were pivotal to the history of the LGBTQ experience, like we interviewed a guy named Greg Baldwin, who was a lawyer who got the sexual orientation clause put back into the Human Rights Ordinance for Miami, and talking about that journey, you know, what happened there. It's a deep, deep journey. And again, he's a multifaceted person. So that's what we're hoping to do. So again, I just want to state that this program is about you. You don't have to come to Vizcaya to share your story with us. You can go to that website. There are instructions on how to do it. You can reach out to us. We'd be happy to come to you and record your story too. So that's kind of the way we're taking our programs, we're standing them on their ear, we're making this about our community, and we welcome any ideas that you might have to improve it.
Thanks, Jeff. And feel free to put any questions you might have about Beyond Vizcaya as well in the chat. We'll see how we can get some of these links to you all after this talk. But some ways you can get involved, you can check out our calendar. For example, some of the Stitch workshops that we discussed earlier are already on the calendar. You can sign up for them. I think they're almost full for the Arbilleras workshop, but there are others.
But that also doesn't matter. Sorry, just because it's full doesn't mean don't show up.
Yeah,
we'll find a chair for you. Come on over.
We do also accept walk-ins as well. Thanks, Rebecca. We also have internships. Jeff They're all paid internships. Some of them are offered through Vizcaya. Some of them we collaborate with other institutions such as Humanities Edge, but we have other internship opportunities that are available. If you don't see any right now, you might see one more toward the late summer. I think we only have one on the website right now, but we also have other partnerships as well. So you're always welcome to reach out to one of us and ask us questions about it. We also have a volunteer core through horticulture. So if you want to learn more about urban farming, or you want to learn about growing, or you want to learn more about gardening in general, you can always volunteer. And then we also have volunteer guides. We have volunteer greeters. And so if that's something that interests you, you're also welcome to explore those opportunities. And as Jeff mentioned earlier, share your story, share the content at Beyond Vizcaya.
Thank you all so much for being here. This was an absolutely fabulous discussion. It is 1:31, so if you're running to get to class, you scheduled us in between something, absolutely understand. Feel free to take what you need. This is our last session of Tuesday Times Roundtable for the spring series, but if at all possible, we encourage all of our students, take 3 minutes, give us some feedback. There's a form here on this QR code, or I'm sure Gitanjali and Natalia are throwing it in the chat for you, to give us an idea of what you would like to see from future TTR sessions. We do take this into account as we're putting together next year's series lineup come this summer. Yeah, but to our participants, if you do have time and space for one more question, there was one that came in earlier about Thoughtful Thursdays, but we moved on from it. But I think it's a great, across the room, maybe it's a one sentence answer from each of you to kind of wrap up when you're looking at what ties something together, right? So this originally started with, can you talk some more about Thoughtful Thursdays? What makes something a feature on Thoughtful Thursday, right?
Yeah,
That
I'll say that
question of how do you decide, right? Like, how do you say, yes, this is something that fits our vision, our mission as Vizcaya? What question do you ask yourselves as you pick something?
I think one thing would be just that, we spent, just as a Zoom example, students are having their classes online. The sort of tech fatigue is real. And how do people have a space outside of the screen and disconnect and work with their hands? And so really being outside, whether that's through a cooking class or that's through an art therapy class, all these are also led by experts, whether they be chefs or whether they be a certified art therapist as well. So just giving people in the community a chance to sort of take a breath, go to someplace new for respite, and learn a new skill.
Do you want to around the room, Rebecca, Jeffrey, Gabriella, what question or what jumps out at you to say, like, yes, this is something that I think that we should pick up, that we should keep going with at Vizcaya?
Well, Thoughtful Thursdays specifically is a series by another one of the department managers. But in terms of how we decide within our own sector, let's say what we hold on to, is that your question?
Yeah, I think so. So it started like, what makes something a series? What makes it keep going? So the way that I'm kind of adapting this to each one of you is what brings it to Vizcaya?
Well, for community programs and partnerships, a lot of what I do is experiences on site, but I'm also building relationships with communities outside of Vizcaya who have felt unwelcome over the years. So West Grove, or what is now called Little Bahamas, is a primary example. That community was pioneered by Bahamians. And so we wanted to learn more about who those people were 100 years ago, and found that the community now doesn't come to Vizcaya, even though we're 10 minutes away. And so it was a simple, really kind of beautifully simple question. What does that community need, and how can Vizcaya support it as we identify as part of the growth? Like, how do we live into our identity as community hub? And when it looks like it's working, when it looks like it's serving the community or it's serving some very specific need, for me, that's a huge benchmark. Like, we should keep this going, because obviously.
That's beautiful. Anybody else want to add anything else there?
Yeah, I would say similar to all of us. I think, we maintain open conversations and communications with, our community and whoever that may be, and really listening to their needs. I know for schools, it's, we do surveys for students and teachers and asking them, like, what can you gain from this? What can we provide to support you? So instead of kind of interjecting our own kind of wishes, we have an open ear to the community and are responding to whatever it is they may need or ask.
And to build off of that, I mentioned earlier the user and audience testing that we do. There's a program of that. So in addition to surveys, we're in the community. Like for Beyond Vizcaya, last year we went to the Guin Festival and we recorded community stories there, but also just testing with folks, their reactions to the content, to what we're doing. It is about asking them, but also measuring that so that it's done in a formal and visual way to inform our course.
Thank you all so much for being here, and Maria for all of your work in gathering your colleagues and bringing them together for this really informative, really insightful discussion. Thank you everyone that is still with us. That's the end of our session, so I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.